I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Go ahead and get a roll call, please.
Director Burton,
Here.
Director Adams,
Here.
Director Young,
Here.
Director Clayton,
Here.
Director Brown.
Here. Moving on to item number 1, minutes of the regular meeting held March 9th, 2023.
President, I've read the minutes and believe they're reasonably accurate, and I make a motion to approve.
Okay, second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to item number 2, committee reports.
So, Carrie wanted me to let you know that there was a city county liaison meeting and that, Director Clayton, introduced a plan for the art station and it was received well. And he wanted to know if Director Clayton or Moreno had anything to add to
Wait.
It was a great meeting. We worked it out with the city and, we're talking with the city still and, we spoke with, Andrew Hackelman, the city manager, and, he, received it really well, and he said we just need to get down into committees and work out with a fine tune and, sharpen the pencils and see what we can do with that. We met a little bit of, obstinate at the get-go because Terry had to apologize 5 times. I apologized 3 times to, the director, the city, Gloria was there. And she said that we were not acting like, partners. We were acting different than partners. And I said, so how so? And the reason being is because of the letter that was directed from Ms. Fenton over to them saying that, we need to move some water or something out there. It wasn't received well from them. And I said that, you know what, we're really sorry about that. And we turned it around and we had an outstanding meeting with 7 different issues, and that was just one of them. And I think it worked out well to our favor. But to both sides' favor.
Thank you for that. Anybody have any questions on anything? Okay, moving on to you.
that. There was a Vandenberg committee, meeting, which, Director Clayton and Basket did some of it, and then would you like to say anything about that meeting?
General in charge out there is 3rd tour at Vandenberg, and they're gonna put more rockets up in the air, and everything's fine.
There was an art committee meeting where some questions came up that need to be answered. Terry's scheduling a meeting with John to, provide a proposal, to add an existing art station, add on to the existing art station. He has drawings being done to show where we could add another bay. One of the art trucks, Rick is going to be asking the city about their specs. And Director Clayton Adams, anything to add?
Because we want to know what they need. Yeah. We want to know what the dimensions of your trucks, what's the dimensions of everything that you need, so that we can try to accommodate them. So we can get them into our fire department, so we can cut the bill and increase our services.
I mean, it was a good planning meeting that we came up probably with questions that we did answer, but we've got a direction on where to go. So,
There was a business park committee meeting to discuss Pioneer Park that expires in July. The committee has instructed Tom Ross to move forward to the next steps. We just finished an admin and finance committee meeting.
We'll go back a second on that one, on the last one.
Yeah.
Regarding the park.
Yeah.
We agreed that we're just gonna go ahead and just continue to lease the park to the city. So they enjoy the lease, and I guess the lease is up for renewal, and I think we should agree to renew it because the city has no problem with it. They want to keep it and keep moving with it, and we're working together on other projects. So that's what we talked about on that park, that we would just let them continue to lease it.
I think before we continue to let them lease it, we need to take a look at the cost involved with it. The city is the one that approached us on buying the park. I think around 3 years ago. And so before we automatically renew that, we've kind of held off doing any kind of adjustments on it. Because we thought they were interested in buying it. Now they're coming back like we were trying to sell it. And it wasn't them that did it. So there's a little confusion on that, but I think before we just arbitrarily agree to continue leasing, which I'm not opposed to that, but we need to sit down and figure out what we're gonna actually do money wise for that lease, because we've held off 3 years, I know of not making an adjustment.
And that's obviously something that can be added to a future, meeting with an agendized item for discussion, and obviously the board would be approving that as a whole, and we can also set agenda items for conference, real property negotiators if we need to, but.
Okay, I just wanted to know.
No, I understand.
For the admin and finance committee, meeting a few minutes ago, we were discussing, adding in software to better support our services and to keep compliant with FAA. You will see that contract on agenda item 7.
The meeting went really great. Learned more about the history and partnership that we have with with Prodigic and their team. And they want to continue to support us. And I believe it's staff sentiment, and we want to continue using their software. So we'll go into that more during the actual action item, but moving forward. Moving on to agenda item number 3, general manager report.
Carrie had a meeting with a representative from AOPA to discuss the non-airworthy air fees, and they had a great conversation. He agreed with the policy and understands the need. He sees many hangars with aircraft that haven't flown in years and knows the dire need for more hangars. He asked if we would keep him in the loop if we have any additional policy changes in regards to lieutenant. He does advocate for pilots, but understands the need for airports to earn money in order to maintain the facility and to build more hangars. We have sent in a few applications for federal funding opportunities. This is through Carvalho's community funding request. There was a job walk for the RFP for the security contract. There were only 2 companies that applied. One was Wilmar and the other was Quest. We had a job walk for the bid we have opened for the Hangar Road 3001 roof. This morning, due to ongoing workloads, the bid opening has been moved to April 6th. We had a call with FAA this morning to discuss our action plan to address the findings from the audit. They were most concerned about our pavement issues. Our inspector is happy to hear we are looking to add Prodigic software to address our concerns. We will be scheduling a follow-up call soon.
Moving on to item number, any questions? Okay, moving on to item number 4, manager of finance and administration report.
I've provided the demand register for your review and approval.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Yeah, can we go back just for a second? On the general manager's report, there was something in there about, you were putting in for, a grant for creating hangars. I don't know, I hate to put you, Rick, on the spot since you just stepped in on that, but is there, are we asking for money from the government for hangars?
I don't believe so. I don't know what I think this is the VIL grant, and I think it has to do with pavement in front of the terminal
Oh.
and things like that. No,
Okay.
this is not. I know that it's not for hangars.
No.
Yeah.
No, I understand what it is. Okay, good.
No.
Anything else for item 4?
Not on the manager report.
For the manager of finance and administration.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's where we are. The rest of the items are informational only, the financial statement and the budget is actual. We will be probably bringing back a budget deviation or 2 for in the next couple of meetings. But we'll talk about that at the time. Also, under my item, I just wanted to let you know that I went to the LCW conference. They used to be our personnel lawyers, they're public sector lawyers, they're a huge firm, and the meeting was very, I got a lot of information. There's a lot of it that I already knew, But based on that conference, I've made a call to an HR consultant and to those attorneys to see what it would cost to revamp our personnel policy. We also need to have an IIPP update and it would be nice to have somebody consult with it on HR if that was something we needed at any time in the future.
Yeah. Might ask if the people in the back that can hear us. And I've had a report that trouble hearing us.
Why don't you ask?
Okay. Yeah, the people that in the back row hear what's going on, you with no problem.
With difficulty.
With difficulty.
Sit in the front.
Oh, yeah, there are a few seats in the front that you guys.
Move closer.
Yeah.
We'll be sure to, you'll see. These are getting closer.
That's right.
Okay, thank you, Renika. Moving on to agenda item number 5, district council report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have nothing to report tonight.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 6, public session. Statements from the floor will be heard during public session. Requests to speak forms are provided to those wishing to address the board. After completing the form, please give it to the clerk. Requests requiring board action will be referred to staff and brought on the next appropriate agenda. Members of the public are cordially invited to speak on agenda items as they occur. Staff reports covering agenda items are available for review in the offices of the general manager on the Tuesday prior to each meeting. The board will establish time for receipt of testimony, in this case, 3 minutes. The board reserves the right to establish further time limits for receipt of testimony. With that being said, I have Mr. Tom Gibbons here.
Good evening, Mr. President, board, staff, public. I have a little thing I want to read to kind of bring it to everyone's attention. It's about special provisions for hearings on taxes and assessments. When considering new or increased taxes or assessments which are not subject to separate notice and public hearing requirements, local legislative bodies, this one, must hold a public meeting and a public hearing in accordance with procedures set forth in the Brown Act. These procedures require that the local agency publish a joint notice of the meeting and the public hearing in the newspaper with not less than 45 days notice of the hearing and not less than 10 days notice of the meeting. The meeting must also take place at least 7 days prior to the public hearing. The notice must contain detailed information about the nature, purpose, and amount of the proposed tax or assessment. 2001 legislative changes clarified that information is required to be provided to businesses subject to the assessment. Any new increased assessment subject to the notice and hearing requirements of Proposition 218, California Constitution Articles 13C and 13D are not subject to those notices or hearing requirements. With adoption of Proposition 26 in 2010, the definition of taxes has been expanded to include regulatory and service fees for those fees exceed the cost of implementing the regulation of providing the service. A legislative body shall provide notice for public hearings at the same time in the same document as the notice of the public hearing, but the meeting shall occur prior to the hearing. And this kind of goes back to the hangar thing. I did a lot of research, and this body didn't follow the law then. Gone a couple of years now, and I know there's a lot of issues going on with hangar rent, but I'm just trying to make sure that it's real clear what's coming up, because some of the times I've looked at your agendas and I don't know who's putting them together, but there's a lot of things that should be put in there. I noticed the last few meetings, there wasn't hardly anybody here, probably because they didn't know what the item was. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom.
I think we have one more, but it's for agenda item number 11. So at that time, we will be calling the speaker up. If anyone else has anything to speak or say, feel free to fill out one of the forms and pass them over to the clerk. Moving on to item number 7, authorization for the general manager to accept the proposal and execute the service and support agreement between the district and ProDigic for the aircraft rescue and firefighting management system.
Thank you, Mr. President. Carrie and Carla attended a meeting with ProDigic last month following the FAA inspection to discuss the ARC management system. They had a few findings, we had a few findings in an LOI related to ARC, and they wanted to see what this program could do. There are a few other airports using this, and it has proven to be a very useful tool. Carrie believes that it will really help us stay compliant and is a tool FAA has access to which they will appreciate. This software does tie in current software and will help with daily inspections as well. The committee met prior to this meeting to discuss with this ProDigic, and there are ProDigic representatives in the audience to answer any questions you may have, or Carla is also available to answer questions. Staff does recommend approval of the contract and the new software.
Our recommendation that we approve it with the new ARC system. I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, moving on to item number 8, authorization for one director to attend the EAA AirVenture Oshkosh to be held July 24th through the 30th, 2023 in Oshkosh, Wisconsin.
Mr. President, President Moreno and Adams met to discuss this, so I'm going to let you take it away.
Yeah, so I've spoken with the chamber and I've spoken with the Economic Development Collaborative for the region, and they have agreed that if this was approved, then we would all get together and create a pitch deck to get to different businesses and companies attending Oshkosh. My aim is to target aviation maintenance companies, engine powerhouse companies, and other aviation services. So with that pitch deck, I think we would be pretty good, at least to start that conversation.
So you're gonna be the representative for the airport?
I mean, I could be, yeah.
Good. You're the representative, I would say yes, sure. And then motion. Oh,
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
opposed?
No.
All right, moving on to item number 9, authorization for tuition reimbursement for one staff member.
Yes, Ms. Osborne, our operations officer, has earned another A, and staff recommends that the approval for the tuition be passed.
So I'm happy to see that 3.9 going up a little point, so you have perfect 4.0 here.
How is that possible? That three will get you to degree.
Congratulations. I second the motion.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to item number 10, authorization for the president and secretary to execute the 13th amendment of the license agreement between the district and Aeronautical Radio.
This license allows for communication, air-ground communication with the commercial airlines, and then staff recommends we approve this item.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
I just kind of want a little more information on that, sorry.
So it's a radio system that allows the ground and commercial airlines. It's a space in the terminal where they
Oh,
put their radio.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to item number 11, discussion and direction to staff regarding a school meeting to be held at the Radisson with airport tenants. Would you like to go before or after the discussion?
After.
Okay.
So this is an item that was added by Director Basket, and I will let him fill you in on the details.
A lot of dynamics going on with hangars and some of the understandings of hangar rules. And I think it's time for us to get together with many tenants. I get a lot of personal calls and meetings about people who have trouble with hangers. And I've been one of them, about historical note. And I recommend that we do have these meetings in accordance with the Brown Act that you just described to us, explained to us. And have a meeting with hanger tenants who are having issues and then maybe have some solutions that we can adopt and provide this future turbulence. So that's my motion on the thing.
Isn't that exactly what I asked at the last meeting where I attended? And Carrie agreed to do that?
Yeah, I believe we've been asking for hangar tenants to be coming in. I mean, these meetings here are open to the public. When we have these conversations, I've told you, you know, I would love to see this room filled up even more so than it is now with hangar tenants. And I would love to hear them voice their opinions and everything. So yeah, I mean, this is something that Steve was mentioning earlier.
Yeah, I thought we had talked about doing that, to have a meeting, just like they did what they did with the commercial people. They do generally with all the hangar tenants.
I think, excuse me, I think the issue though is that Director Basket is asking for a meeting with the directors and we can't do that. Is that,
No,
understand. We can't do that without the Brown Act. We could meet staff and hangar tenants can meet without a Brown Act violation.
So if I could just weigh in here, I think we're potentially running into an issue, sort of, for lack of a better term, it's sort of a separation of powers type issue. The way that the district is set up is that the board sets the policies and gives the directives to the staff to enforce. And with regard to the hangar tenants and things like that, the board has done that. We have hangar lease policies, we have leases, we have lease forms. These are all approved by the board and put in place. And as far as the rules for the hangar tenants for what they need to do and not do, that is all contained in the leases themselves. So we do have meetings twice every month. They're publicly noticed. Obviously, any hangar tenant that wants to come address the entire board about a concern they have, if they feel that staff is not enforcing the leases correctly, if something's not being done, that can certainly appropriately be done at any regular meeting we have in public comment. And if there is sufficient issues that are raised and the board as a whole wants to put an agenda item on for discussion or wants to reconsider any of our lease policies, our lease terms, how we've handled delinquent tenants, any of these other things that have already been the subject of past decisions and policy making decisions with the board, we can certainly do that at some future time. As you go through our admin code, you'll see, you know, the way it's set up with the duties of the general manager versus the duties of the director. And so the way that is set up is that the board directs policy, which it has done and covers these things. So my recommendation as council would be that these policies are in place. The hangar tenants certainly can ask the general manager or some other staff member for copies of any policies, for copies of their leases. They can ask them questions that they have. We do start to run into a problem where we have direct interactions from hangar tenants asking questions about what's going on in leases like that with individual directors, because as we've talked about in the past, the board, you are the board sitting as a whole and you act collectively as a whole. We tend to run into problems when directors are acting individually, not as part of what they've done here. And we run into confusion, which I think we have here. And there seems to be some confusion about what are the policies, why is it happening, things like that. And I think that tends to arise when you have these direct interactions with an individual board member, rather than the board members directing those tenants that to the GM or other staff who have all this information to give them. And then if there is any problem, if the tenants have any criticism of what staff is doing, they can certainly bring that here to the board as a whole, and then you can address it if you need to. I'm not saying that that I know there are no problems or anything else. I obviously don't know the details of every situation. But there are policies and rules and everything that have been put into place to cover nearly every situation that arises. That's what the leases are for, and that's what our lease policies are for. They lay out those rules. So as from a legal perspective, I would not recommend setting up a dialogue between the board members and hangar tenants. Separately, when I think what's happened here is that a lot of these questions can be answered directly at staff level based on what's in the leases, what's in the lease policies.
I'll go back to my statement and my suggestion, Ron also had pretty much the same idea.
Well, my idea was not for us, but for them. The GM to do the meeting, not us as the directors. That way, it was just a form so that where the GM, just like she did with the other ones, to where the people could come as a whole, and she could answer questions on what's going on. If they have questions, they could ask questions.
And that is how the district functions. I mean, obviously, as the board members, you can't deal with day-to-day operations, nor should you. Again, that's in the admin code. You set the policy, you give direction to the general manager, to district council, and to enforce the policy. And if there's any unhappiness, obviously, with how the policy is being enforced, things like that, that ultimately falls on your staff that take direction from you. If we're not enforcing it correctly or in a way, then I can be fired, the general manager can be fired, we can be disciplined, things like that. But that is how the structure is set up.
The structure is appropriate and proper, but there's also places for a separate meeting in public with staff and with the board members. I attended one recently for the high school, Union High School, which has similar rules of and other things. We put a special meeting up at the Radisson Airport, already noticed, and people had issues come there without going to the normal published meeting, which the school board has one a month, and responding to certain issues that had come up with the school board. I believe that it is in the board's, in the airport's interest to have a special meeting. Again, I agree with you, it should be staff, and maybe the new general manager could set it up and have, and welcome to the airport party with hangar tenants. But it should be noticed, it should be done, because there's a lot of things that you're not aware of, I believe, that people are afraid to come in here because of the current toxic attitude that's happening throughout the airport, according to information given to me by multiple people. And that we should have this meeting for the hangar tenants who would like to come and express their concerns and review the current rules and make sure they're in compliance. And perfect example is this, I'll read you a copy of it.
So we have public session in each one of our meetings here. I understand that, you mentioned that some people have been saying that this is becoming a toxic environment of the sorts or something like that. But other than the comments that you've had, we haven't had anyone come up here, or at least a number of people come up here and say the same. So I urge those that feel that way to come up here and say their comments. If we have public session for, go ahead and write down one of the forms and we'll get you up.
Says here, we can also raise our hand to be recognized. We can be recognized.
That's for the Zoom.
Oh, that's really,
That's.
that's what we're gonna turn off.
Oh, that's one, oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's all a form of word now, I think that.
But I agree. I think the GM should have,
Yeah, be a nice
there should
introduction to
be,
GM.
there should be a
come and set it up.
GM / staff meeting. I mean, we don't have, if people want to talk to staff and directors, that's what this meeting is for.
I would think sooner than later, because I spoke with some tenants as well, and they thought it was two tenants were with a plane, and there's another guy at the plane outside, and he just wanted to house his plane in one side of one of the hangars. And he went to one hangar and said, "Hey, I just want to put it in there just for a little bit." He said, "No, can't put it in my hangar because I'm afraid that they'll think I'm subleasing, so forget it." Went to another hangar, the guy said the same thing. He had to leave his plane sitting out in the rain, I don't know. But it just needs to be, because they're all good tenants for us, we just need to make sure, and it's a lot of money that we receive off of everybody. So I think we would just, have a better open dialogue with our tenants.
Well, and hopefully, it's the tenants can have open dialogue with staff. Hey, got my friend here, he's putting this airplane in, it's gonna be great for a couple of days or a couple of weeks or whatever.
Yeah.
So the staff knows what's going on.
All right, we have Jim here. Thank you, Jim. You have,
Yeah, well, one of the concerns I have is just the lack of communication. You know, these are public hearings, that's correct, but the publication of these meetings to the wider tenant or population is very poor. I don't get any emails, I don't get any texts, so I would say communications is very lacking. So that needs to be improved for one thing. And on the other occasion with my hangar, I was asking for a permission from the general manager in the administration to have add somebody to my lease. And that person that I was talking to said, no, you cannot do that. And so I quit. And then somebody came back and said, well, you're gonna probably be evicted because you were asking for more money than what your rent is, which was absolutely not true. When I confronted this particular person, she said she had a source substantiated, which is, you don't have any substance to what you're accusing me of, which was absolutely false. So I feel that that's draconian in nature, that unless you have some kind of proof that I was trying to profit from that, then, you know, your basis for your accusation is unsubstantiated. And I don't know where it stands to this day, but I would like to have that addressed. Because you just can't go on hearsay accusing somebody of something that's not true. Now, I was trying to help out a neighbor on a temporary basis. And if there can't be any little bit of a latitude for a little bit of helping a friend for temporary basis, we have plenty of tenants whose airplanes go in for avionics work in Lancaster or whatever, and their hangar's gonna be, you know, vacant for a couple of months. And somebody's other airplane is out in the elements during this rainy season, and now that person is afraid to approach or allow that person to put their airplane in his hangar or her hangar for a period of time because of this toxic environment that's developing here at this airport. That's not right. And then we need to have a community of, you know, helpfulness and helping each other and trying to promote this airport, make it friendly to the tenants and to anybody who wants to bring their business here. Now, I brought business to this airport, very genuine. And I also brought increased taxes through fuel cells to this airport. I have been a very big proponent of this airport. It's a very underutilized airport. It has a huge amount of potential. And I just don't understand why you would want to create a toxic environment that's going to take away from that. So that is my biggest concern right now, is that there's a toxicity that's happening here, a negative environment that's developing, and, you know, the Gestapo type of tactics is very bad. So I would push that we do have these tenant meetings, get the communication out there, attract all these tenants to a meeting, whether it's just with the general manager and staff or with boards, directors of the board included. I don't know, whatever is appropriate, but let's get the communication going. Let's get some discussion going. Let's talk about the peculiarities of the leases so that if somebody does run afoul of it, not on purpose, you don't just have a knee-jerk reaction to trying to evict that person or try to punish them. And that goes with, you know, whether, you know, we had one of our tenants, he flies this airplane on almost a weekly basis. It's the most beautiful antique airplane, a Ronca, that I've ever seen, an example of that particular airplane. He got noticed that he is not in compliance because
And they want to raise the rent 20%. And he came in and talked to the interim general manager, I believe, and was told that, well, you don't show up on the ADSB on the fourth flight. He doesn't even have an electrical system on that airplane. There's no transponder. There's no requirement for transponder. So, you know, if you're gonna do stuff like that, know what you're talking about. Get some education. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. Before you actually leave, question on the communication side of it. What would be like your proposed best way to get communicated?
There's the US mail. There's emails. I've never gotten an email from this airport at all for anything. So that everybody's got email. There's text messaging. People can subscribe to, a broadcast on text messaging if they want. It's an option. There's all sorts of forms of communication. I don't get anything from this airport at all, from in the US mail. As a matter of fact, this one notice I got, it showed up in the US mail, uncertified, unregistered, like almost a month after this thing was posted on the hangar door, which is, to me, that's backwards the way things ought to be done. So if you're gonna do stuff, do it properly. Give service, if you're gonna serve, do it properly.
And one more question for you. As a tenant, would you prefer having tenant meetings be a part of these sessions, or would you rather have?
I would like, to me, it's like an informal mixer at the Radisson or some other venue, something like that, so everybody's at ease. You could just talk about, events that are upcoming, like when the air show, that we had the greatest air show since my time at this airport, this last air show that we had. That would be a great forum for, pumping up the air show. Get the tenants involved, things like that. Let's make this airport what it could really be. Let's be positive, not negative.
All right, thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
But Maria, in the past, we have had people request that we email the agenda to them and we've done it. So if anybody wants that, we just put them on the recurring email and send it out.
I'll just add an agenda for next session for communication. We'll have a discussion on that.
We should have a list, you can just email everybody, right?
Right, we'll figure out the best way to do it.
And just for your information, President, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to clarify a couple things. One, the meeting agendas are posted online in compliance with the law. We do have regular meetings here, unless rescheduled, it's right with the same 2 Thursdays every month. Two, with regard to communications, again, and many of these things that are being discussed, these are all laid out clearly in leases. There are notice provisions in the leases, and when tenants sign the leases, they indicated how they would receive notice of certain things. And that is in compliance with the form leases and the policies of the board. At any time, if the board would like to revisit those policies and look at other things, they can certainly do so. But to my knowledge, there have not, prior to tonight, I could be forgetting something, but prior to tonight, there's not at any board meeting been any request from any tenant that they be given notice of things in a different way other than what's in their lease. So I just want to, for the board's information, I just want to make sure that it's clear. And because I do see many of these issues come across my email as I work with the general manager, and in most cases, there are multiple attempts at communication prior to any posting of a notice or anything like that. But almost all of these questions or misunderstandings, et cetera, are readily addressed by actually reading the leases that the tenants have signed. I'm certainly not against other forms of communication or anything like that. I just want to make sure that it's clear that the airport has, to my knowledge, has been complying with the written terms of the leases and providing notice as required by the leases. I just wanted to mention too, that there are some potential problems with setting another meeting that's a mixer for purposes of discussing airport things with the board members. We can't simply have a mixer with the board members to informally discuss things going on in the airport. That was a reason under the Brown Act. We do have to have a notice of meeting with agendized item and a formal discussion so that those who may or may not decide to attend are able to look at the agenda and know the topics that are going to be discussed. Again, these are the sort of things that you were talking about, meeting, a more formal meeting for input with general manager or staff is certainly not a problem. But when we're talking about the board, we do need to have a formal meeting that follows the law. And that again is what we're talking about, the difference between board setting a policy and the staff implementing the policy on a day-to-day basis.
So that's what we're doing here.
Yeah, I think staff is probably the best way to go about this for this, whether it be an informal mixer or just a tenant meeting or whatever it will end up being looking like, whatever. But it'll be a staff meeting. In terms of leases, that's a more I want to say, vocalized issue that if you have an issue with your lease, then you should be bringing it up for yourself. But just like a meeting with the staff or to inform, or maybe even give more information or kind of just refresh people on leases and that kind of stuff.
And to my knowledge, just from my, I'm sorry, but just to my knowledge from my observation, over the course of years at the airport, staff has always made themselves available to answer questions about leases, about what leases mean. They answer questions all the time. Why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? It's because it's what's in the lease, and that's tenants can obviously look at that themselves. But I understand not everybody. You lease a house, maybe you don't go through and read every provision of the lease. I understand that our leases are not super complicated and they're pretty easy to understand. But from my observation, staff has always answered those questions, and they made themselves available via email and phone calls and in-person meetings to address questions about the leases and what is or is not permitted. And there are rules in our leases that are there for specific, again, policy purposes, whether it's adding tenants, subleasing, things like that. And a lot of that goes back to the fact that we have our aeronautical hangars are under market for normal commercial storage, and we frequently have wait lists for certain types of hangars that are established. So some of those rules are in the leases so that people can't circumvent the wait list by adding a co-tenant who's now going to be the person that uses the hangar and they skip ahead. I'm certainly not accusing anybody of that's here or that spoke tonight. I don't have personal knowledge of that situation or anything else. I'm just talking about the broader, again, as I say, the policy implications of why we have these rules and leases. And there's a lot of things like that I understand. Somebody might say, why are you making this difficult to just add somebody to my lease? Like what's the problem with that? I understand that, but there is a real
You did for item number
Do another
6.
Yeah, you can't.
No, he could probably do the next item. Yeah, there are real policy reasons behind a lot of these rules, and that, in my observation, normally staff is happy to go over the thing.
Thank you, Josh.
Although I certainly can't speak to every situation.
Yeah, I think in just the broader term, just like whether it be talking about leases or whether it be talking about future events coming up, just a kind of little update to the tenant committee by staff shouldn't hurt too bad.
That's a good one.
We have another speaker coming up.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Gibbons. Go for it.
I've been doing this for a little while. And when you're new, people don't understand what all of this is about. This right here is where this board does their business in public. That's the sole reason it's set up. For many, many years, whether you're a special district or an independent special district, there are, some people call them social events. There have been many events here when Chris Hassler was here where there was public interface with the board members. Nobody comes to those things to make a deal. There isn't an agenda. This is where you exhaust all your administrative remedies. That'll help you. You understand that better than most, I hope. But you need to get a connection with your of your tenant. And not that you need to pat each other on the back, but you need a safe place where people don't feel intimidated. What I see going on here is something I've never seen at the fairport. And there's some things that you can fix it with relatively easily, but you can't confuse what you do here with what I believe this meeting is, that people want to get tenants together with the board. You guys run the place. When you run it, you kind of get to do it the way you're gonna do it, but you're not gonna go to these things and make deals. That, nobody would want to do that. That would be a Brown Act violation. But I'm gonna tell you, I don't know a public agency that doesn't have public interface with elected officials. I don't want to take up the whole evening, but you know, after you lose all your color, maybe you lose all your sense too, right? Am I wrong? Call on me, I'll help you. It'd be nice if everybody even knew what type of meeting protocols you have. I mean, we learned Robert Rules of Order when we were this kid doing 4-H, and you leave that at 4-H when you move ahead. But everybody's got to understand what the rules are and what you do here. But thank you very much for giving me a couple minutes.
President Moreno, members of the board, if I might add something, you could at some point direct a subcommittee, one of your subcommittees, to look at internal communications and external communications. Yeah. Sorry, President Moreno, members of the board, a suggestion that at a later date you could instruct staff to look at and review internal communications with your tenants and external communications and community outreach, and coming up with a plan so that that's comprehensive, whether it's adding emails, creating a quarterly newsletter as we advise to another special district in Montecito, assorted other ways to connect, communicate. This could be mixers, you know, once again. But that way you have a plan. Once again, I emphasize both internal, possibly external community outreach as well.
Let's have let's have a meeting on marketing and promotions for that.
And we do that, that's a good one too. All right, that is a good idea. Quarterly newsletter, where'd that come from? Montecito, you said?
Yeah, I'm happy to bring some examples to that subcommittee as well, so you can. Once again, you know, obviously it's staff time, but well, both the community needs to know more about the airport and maybe your thing as well.
All right, so to put a cap on this, and we'll have you speak here in a bit. We'll move forward and figure out a better way to communicate with key tenants, and just figure out a way to set up a staff meeting with tenants as well, whether it be monthly or bi-yearly, quarterly, or yeah. So yeah, we'll figure that out moving forward. With that being said, before Mr. Massey,
I'm speaking as a tenant. Last year, a different board, but this board made a change. A statement was made by a hangar tenant, which is me, on the airport for 22 years, paid the hangar rent, properly paid, proper aircraft. But I was unhappy. Because I was unhappy, former board, 3 votes, said lease is terminated, so the phone off the airport. I never want to see that happen again to anybody. If it happened to me, it can happen to anybody, unless we have to change policy in this board, this vote. Here's this is part of there.
that's just.
Oh, thank you.
I think that's good.
After the minutes.
Okay, we'll go ahead and do a 10-minute break for this one, and then we'll go into closed session.
I mean, it was like, Florida started too. Well, the gym guy would. So I don't know if it's like the way that like the venom that was there. He was directed at you. At you.
We're getting out of closed session with no report of action. Going over to director's comments. Do we have comments?
I have no comment.
No comment?
No comment.
I have sometimes, Alan, two things. One is, I'd like to find out how we're going on the energy project, if there's any projected dates for getting the first 450 kilowatts or so of power out here. And the RFI is gonna go out for a study to find out how much energy the airport needs.
And we're supposed to do a committee meeting for that.
Maybe,
Yeah, we need a committee meeting to decide if we can do an RFP or RFQ.
okay. Well, you know.
I don't second it, so.
We'll let Terry know.
That's fine. The other one is, a couple of years ago, we didn't have any barriers. And, Mr. Josh here suggested that we put barriers because the guy came up in a wheelchair and got a little close. We work for these people that come in out here. They are our clients, they're our customers. They are citizens who get there, and I'd like to see the barriers come down. I don't think they really help anything. I'm not worried about somebody coming up here, getting you or me or somebody else. So I just like to suggest, makes it friendlier and I think more attractive to people who do take time out to come to a board meeting, which is very rare. There used to be nobody here all the time. And so I'd like to see the barriers come down. That's my take.
Make a motion, we go home.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Well done. Another day, another 50 cents, right? Yeah.